I'm like, damn, I did all of these things.
Did you cry?
It was just a very emotional moment because now I'm thinking like, is this real?
Yeah. Did you cry? What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of It's Giving. I am your host, Sarah Fontenot, and if you have not yet, please hit that button below and make sure to get subscribed. Hit that bell so you get a notification with each new piece of content. Now, I have to tell you, I am very excited for today. This interview is going to blow you away. I know not only is this man literally the epic depiction of self-love, and not because that's even the message that he's out here saying, but it's because it's the message that he embodies. He is serious about helping people become their best selves. He is serious about helping people to be healthy and understand what that actually means. Has incredible businesses. I mean, literally owns all the things, okay? We're not even going to talk about what he owns outside of this state and this country. But we're not talking about business today. We're talking about the man behind it. Today, we are joined by none other than the Dr. Bobby Price.
Man, I need to bring you on tour to bring me out.
How are you?
Man, I'm blessed.
I'm
blessed. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So I have to ask you, the show is called It's Giving.
Yeah.
So if this chapter of your life were called It's Giving blank, and you have to fill in the blank, what would it be called? And you have to say It's Giving.
It's giving alignment.
Ooh, break that down.
You know, I always have themes as I go into the year.
Yeah.
And so I look at my life like a story, and each year is like a chapter.
Yeah.
And so last year was service,
Mm.
you know, just serving. And that was my whole focus last year. But as I was coming into 2023, my whole idea was alignment. And I thought that was so important because a lot of my spiritual beliefs are aligned with that in terms of like what's happening now in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also what's happening in the universe. And so right now it's giving alignment.
I love that.
Yeah.
What do you think is the biggest part of what's being aligned right now? Spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, energetically, or all of the above?
Yeah. Me with God. Yeah. So I think everybody has these sort of peaks and valleys with their relationship with God.
Yes.
Sometimes they're really close and then sometimes they pull back. And I had a period of years when I went through this whole enlightenment period where I was very close to God. It felt amazing. And then got to work in my purpose, you know, found my purpose. And I've been so busy in that a lot of my spiritual practices I haven't been able to invest in like I usually do. And so this year it's been an evolution in terms of like a lot of those practices, not to say I don't need them anymore, but now I experience it through common things, washing the dishes or, you know, going for a walk or spending time on my farm.
Yeah.
And so,
small flex.
But yeah, you know, my alignment with God has been beautiful to feel closer again.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. And it's crazy. I remember it had to have been at least a year ago, and we were having a conversation. It might be longer than a year ago.
Yeah.
We were having a conversation about you getting your farm.
Yeah.
And then you bought a whole farm for your company, and other things, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But it's really cool because I love the way that you are so passionate about eating clean and eating healthy and doing the things that are going to help us to live as long and as healthily as we possibly can.
Yeah.
How was that? Like, who did you have to be? Was it easy to buy a farm out of country? Like, what did that look like?
Man, so again, alignment.
Yeah.
You know, I think what's so important is, you know, I'm a spiritual person, not necessarily religious, but
What do you think the difference is?
Well, I think spirituality is a direct correlation and relationship with God and no middleman. And so religion has a middleman. It's the church. It's the biblical practices. And not that I don't subscribe to any of them, but my primary relationship is a direct relationship with God. I'm constantly having conversations with God.
I love that.
And sometimes people will hear me like talking to myself and they're like, who are you talking to? I was like, oh, talking to
God.
Yeah. So that's what I believe.
Yeah.
And so I believe that in the beginning there was the Word,
Mm-hmm.
and the Word was God and was with God. I believe that when you put words out into the universe, they fulfill themselves. It's like rubbing a genie, like rubbing a lamp to get a genie to come out.
Yes.
And so I think that's the first phase of it, is to put the words out into the universe. Now you have to be careful about who you give those words to.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people throw them back at you.
Very true.
But
it's like black magic.
Yeah, but I whisper that to the universe and the people that I'm cool with and I got good energy with, and things just started aligning. I wanted a tropical fruit farm, which is something that is very difficult to find. I mean, if you look in the US, there's probably, I mean, in terms of like companies, like there's probably like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And none of them are Black. So the idea of finding an area where I can grow tropical fruit, that was going to be difficult in the first place.
The fruit is fire.
Yeah. And so, and then finding the fruit that I want, soursop, sugar apple, custard apple, dragon fruit,
yellow ones,
sapodilla,
not the pink ones,
guava.
Oh, I love guava. I feel like you talk about fruit I've never even heard of before.
Yeah.
But I do know, my dad was going through our second battle with cancer.
Yeah.
And I remember reaching out to you and being like, what are some ideas? And you were like, the antioxidants and soursop. Like, there's just so many things that we don't even know. Boil the leaves, turn it into tea.
Yeah.
I did that in St. Lucia, by the way.
Good.
It was quite delightful.
Yeah.
It actually has a taste. I was like, I'm drinking a leaf, but I guess tea is just leaves.
Yeah. I mean, and again, like, I think the way we look at healing today, because of how we look at healing in the form of a pill. So a pill for every ill. But you got to understand the way that we were supposed to heal ourselves was through nature.
Yes.
And it goes back to that whole concept. God is omnipresent. So he's in the food as well too.
Yes.
And so it's important to know it's just not the fruit that comes off of the tree, it's the leaf. And sometimes it's the bark.
Yes. Or the root.
Or the root. And so it's important to know that we have sort of lost this connection with nature. And so we can identify with those things that not only maintain our health, but also heal us as well.
I honestly feel like our food is empty. And I feel like I'm almost like weary to eat much of anything because it's so hard to find nutritious value, and everything is made in a lab these days. Everything is juiced up with extra fats and sodiums and sugars and all of these different things. And we know that that's what, causes disease and dis-ease, right? When we're unhappy with ourselves. But I have to ask you, because you said 2 things that made me think of 2 books.
Okay.
Have you ever read the book Conversations with God?
I have. Most of them. Because there's about 4 of them.
Oh, I haven't read the 4th.
Yeah, I think he came out with the 4th.
Neil Diamond Welsh.
Yeah.
This trilogy, well, I only know the trilogy.
Okay.
I really only liked 1 and 3. I could have missed out on 2.
Gotcha.
2 got really redundant. But do you feel like that book kind of shifted the way that you looked at spirituality? Because it is very much outside of the box and challenges the way that you look at relationship with God and indoctrination, period.
Man, actually, no. So I actually saw it was like a little short film. I saw that before I ever read the books.
Really?
But I've always been like this. Even when I was a kid, I would always be in conversation with God.
Yeah?
Even as a little kid.
That's special.
And so, my conversations with God started very early.
Yes.
I guess I always felt his presence within me.
Yeah.
And so as a result, even though we are God, there's no separation. And so as I'm saying it as it's separate, but I always felt this presence within me that was above the flesh. And so I was always speaking to that. And so speaking to that part of myself that is divine, but also speaking to that all-knowing architect.
Yeah, I feel like I so strongly, I remember when that book shook my life up. I won't lie, because I grew up learning about the church. I grew up with a praying mother, like very much like, I remember the one time that I ever lost my whole mind and talked back crazy to my mother. My mom had me pinned up against the wall, speaking in tongues over me. Like, oh, I will never forget this moment. Yeah. She was trying to cast demons out of me. And I'm like, lady, you need to chill. But it probably worked a little bit, And I say that to say that book really challenged the way of of how I've been indoctrinated into what I believe. I feel like a lot of books that are really great classic books challenge the way that you would naturally think based off of societal views,
Yeah.
right? Who God is inside of our life. And it's crazy. I always think of, I'm really close with my parents. And my mom, I remember one time, and if I cry, I'm sorry, I might need Q-tips on deck, team, might need Q-tips on deck, just letting that be said. Anytime I talk about my family, I cry.
Yeah.
But I remember my mom talking about how she was doing Bible study by herself. And she said, I was in my Bible, and, in Genesis, it talks about how God took clay and brought the clay, see, here I go, brought the clay to God's mouth, right? And blew life into Adam.
Yeah.
And if you were to think about how intimate that moment is, that thing that went inside of the clay was God, right? Because we have a human experience, but we have a spirit, and spirit is eternal.
Right.
So if our spirit is eternal, it's not human,
right?
Because humans are not eternal.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a really sensitive subject when we say things like, we are God, but we are of God. God is a creator. He made us to be creators. But what is God? Is God a he, she, it, they? Like, that book really challenged the way that I think about God, because growing up, I thought God was an old white man sitting in the clouds.
Right.
Saying that this is what's okay and this is what's not okay, until I really started to create and establish that relationship on my own.
Yeah.
So what do you feel like, Neil Donald Welsh, what do you feel like was your biggest takeaway from that book when you had read it, if you remember?
I think one of my biggest takeaways is that, first of all, having this direct relationship with God, I was only having conversations with God. It wasn't a relationship.
Oh.
And so it was me speaking, saying, God, get me out of this. God, why do I feel like this? What do I do next? So it's just conversation. That book helped me develop a relationship with God. So that's what I actually got from the book was, oh no, I can be in relation with God. I can be in tandem with God. I can say, I want to do this, but how would this serve the purpose that I came down here to serve? So like, I think that's what the book did for me. It helped me develop this relationship with God and start to see myself as a part of that as well too. Instead of, cause although I always tell people I'm a servant of God, I'm also am God at the same time. We all are. And so I think we have this sort of idea about, God, religion, etc., where we have to put ourselves beneath. But I look at it like this, I'm a scientist. So I look at it like in our bodies, we have 75 trillion cells. And I just believe that we're all just individual cells that make up the body of God. And anything outside of us, inside of us, is all a part of God.
Yeah.
And once I started to see it like that, now I can see God in even the people I'm having a disagreement with. I can see God even in people I don't know, or cultures that I don't agree, I don't know anything about, or maybe I've been taught that these are cultures that are against my culture. And so it just really opened up the way I think about not only God, but it opened up how I think about life in and of itself here on earth.
Yeah. So do you feel like other people are you?
Yeah. I believe that
we're all one.
Yeah, I believe
past, present, future.
Past, present, futures.
Time doesn't exist.
It's like my life that's happening right now.
Yeah.
There's a whole nother life happening on another timeline.
But is it you, or is it another person that is also you?
It's one and the same.
So we're all one.
So like, I'll give you for instance, whenever I come into contact with somebody, I realize that at some level, either we had a conversation before we came down here and we made a pact or an agreement about what we're supposed to do when we meet each other, or you saw fit to say, I need to intervene here, or I need to intervene in your life. But there's a higher part of me that is also seeing how things are playing out and redirecting things as well too. I also believe that there's a council of elders that are there as well too, guiding me along the journey as well too. So when I come into contact with somebody, I'm always looking for myself in them, because I know that there's a purpose in coming in contact with them. Even if it's a a contact that I don't agree with, I don't want.
Right.
Sometimes it's affirming or confirming that this is what I don't want.
Yes.
And so whenever I come into contact with something, I'm like, this is me. This is God. And no matter how you see it, good, bad, ugly, hot, cold, it's a lesson, or it's at least something to either confirm or affirm something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because I'm very open, and I feel like people oftentimes judge and have biases when they are bought into a belief that honestly is not even most of the time their own belief. It's the one that was taught to them from childhood, and now it's become what they believe.
Right.
I'm very open. I'm very much like, you do you, I'm gonna do me, and it is what it is, right? I'm not here to judge anyone or tell anyone what to do, but I know God is real. Like nobody can tell me God's not real. I shouldn't even be here. That's how real God is, right? I shouldn't be walking. That's how real God is. Like God has intervened in my life to say, this is my Sarah. You know, if I walk into a room of 1,000 people, God knows which one I am because we have relationship, right? And so I'm not telling anyone what to do at home, but what I will say is I watched this 8-minute video on YouTube called The Egg.
Oh, yeah.
This 8-minute video really made me think a little bit different. Whether it's true or not doesn't matter, but I feel like the relationship that I even choose to have with people changed because of that video. I saw it years ago.
Yeah.
And essentially in the video, a man dies in the beginning and he's like, well, did I die? And he meets God, and God is like, I'm going to send you back down to earth. And essentially he's like, but when you go back, you're going to be in 535 AD as a impoverished Asian woman.
Yeah.
And he was like, why are you doing all of this? You created all of this. What's the purpose? He said, I created it for you. And he's like, well, me and everybody else on the planet. And he's like, no, for you, because you are everyone.
Yeah.
And when you've lived every single person's life on this planet and you don't remember, and I don't have time to explain to you, it's time to send you back.
Right.
But when you go back, you are really coming in contact with yourself inside of each person that you meet.
Right.
And so in this 8-minute video, it really broke down like a whole paradigm that I was like, oh, this is a shift inside of how I treat people, because like that saying, how you do unto others what you would have them do unto you.
Right.
You really are doing unto others what's going to come to you.
Right.
Like karma, vibe, it's real. Whatever energy you put out there, you get that energy back. And so I'm mindful of people because energy contagion is real.
Right.
Like, you know, those negative people that catch every light, they stub their toe getting out the bed and they always have something negative to say. I can't hang around those people. I'm scared of those people because your life is probably a representation of how much negativity you speak, how much lack you live in. And I don't want to catch that.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's a contagion. Usually contagions just aren't good. You know? Stay away from that, you know? But the second book that you made me think of is called The Mastery of Love. Are you familiar?
I'm not familiar with that one.
It's another Don Miguel Ruiz book.
Okay.
He wrote The 4 Agreements.
Yep.
And The Mastery of Love talks about how we speak, and it speaks about, how we are either sending love to people or we're literally performing black magic on people.
Yeah.
And he speaks about how, us as parents, what we do to our children. I don't have kids yet, but one day, husband.
Yeah.
I'm ready. But I say that to say that, inside of how we speak unto others, and then other people become, it's like we're casting a spell, right? Yep. We're casting a spell on these people. Even the words that we write, that's why they call it spelling.
Yeah.
Right? We're writing out the truth of our lives or however often we choose to do that. But it could be power. There's power inside of manifestation. Like that's the God thing, right? And so, it talks about words. So how have you been able to use your words to manifest the life that you want?
So my first sort of breakthrough with manifestation was probably in 2014. I was in this parallel where I'm like, I got 2 paths to take. I'm working in the hospital, doing exactly what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm being exactly who I plan to be. My career is going exactly where it wants to go, but I'm not happy because now I've figured out another way, another holistic way to help people heal. And the unfortunate thing is it's actually counterproductive to the path that I chose as a child to become, a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm at this sort of fork in the road, and I'm trying to figure out, what do I do? Because it's like, on one end, I grew up in a very humble, impoverished environment, and I don't ever want to be broke again.
Right.
And then on the other hand, I got this purpose that is like nagging inside of me. And so I quit my job.
Did you have were you already doing well over here before you quit? Or you were like, I'm quitting and I'm figuring it out?
I quit and figured it out because I wasn't doing well. To be honest with you, in 2010, when I started talking to people about, adopting a plant-based diet, using herbs, like, it wasn't cool like it is now.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, people weren't showing up in droves, so I didn't. But the thing is, I'm so committed to being authentic and living in my truth.
Yes.
That I felt so false, I just couldn't stay at the hospital anymore. Because the thing is, people saw my own personal transformation. I was 50 pounds overweight, sleep apnea, had high blood pressure, and I was in my late 20s.
What?
And so as a result of that, like, people saw me lose 50 pounds. They saw me come off of medication. And I witnessed it. I witnessed that healing in my body. So imagine my perspective.
Right.
And so being in the hospital now, it's like, I feel like a hypocrite. And so I'm at this crossroad. And so I decided I was going to write down essentially everything I wanted. I was like, I dreamt what I wanted to have, and I attained it, and I'm not happy. So I was like, okay, I need to dream again. So I sat down, wrote down all of these things. I mean, where I wanted to live, what I wanted to do. And a little bit later, I had a bookcase that I put in front of it and forgot about it. So I wrote down this whole list, put it on the wall, started buying books to learn about holistic healing and things of that nature. Had to get a bookshelf, covered it up, ended up taking a job in Japan, lived there for 4.5 years in Okinawa to study people.
Can you speak Japanese?
Some.
Okay.
And so there for 4.5 years, and learn what I want to learn. And then everything just took off at that point. I ended up coming back here, writing the book, and everything just went up. And when I did move back, and so I'm moving my things, removed the bookcase, everything on the list had been checked off.
Wow, that's crazy.
And I didn't realize it because, again, I lived in Japan for 4.5 years.
Yeah.
So this list was behind this bookcase for 4.5 years while I was gone. And so when I got back here to the US and I see it, I'm like, damn, I did all of these things.
Did you cry?
It was just a very emotional moment because now I'm thinking, like, is this real?
Yeah. Did you cry?
I think I did.
Good.
Yeah, I did.
I'm glad you did.
And I think what made me cry was I got to see my life differently. Because now I'm not just looking at where I'm at, I'm looking where I came from, I'm looking where I'm at now, and I'm looking at the possibilities of where I'm going. And everything is different now. I feel like, no, God is definitely with me. I've been talking to him, but now I know, like, you ever seen this, like a poster where it says, I thought I was walking by myself and I saw the footprints in the sand. I only saw my footprints, but it was God carrying me. That literally is what came up for me. And so I said, okay, if you rocking with me like that, let's see what else is possible. And that's literally what my first sort of, touch with manifestation was. And so it's just grown from there.
I love that.
Yeah.
And there's so many moments and parallels that I've had that were those moments of like footprints. That was actually on the wall growing up at home. And then you see the little feet in the sand. So it's funny that you mentioned that, but there's so many moments of like, wow, I've come so far.
Yeah.
Like I have so far, even still to go, but like I've come so far from being the girl that would call my mom every month asking her to help me pay my rent.
Yeah.
or how am I going to put gas in my car? And so it's funny because you said, I knew I was on the up, but who did you have to be when you were in the down? How did you walk away from a job and not be homeless? Or were you homeless? What did that even look like? Did you save? Were you strategic? What did that, so for the person that's listening and it's like,
Yeah.
I'm no longer doing what I love doing and I want to do something different. What would be your advice to that person?
So years before I had experienced homelessness. I was homeless for about 3 or 4 months.
Sheesh.
And so I knew what that was like. But I remember in that moment when I was making a choice, I knew this was a different choice. When I was homeless before, it's because of my ego. So my ego made me homeless. That's what created everything. Because at the time when I was homeless, I had 2 degrees. Everything in my life was a shock because I'm like, I come from the gutter. I got these 2 degrees and now you've made me homeless. I was blaming the world. I was saying like the world owed me something. And after coming out of that, that's where I created my new work ethic. That's why I actually created a new relationship with work. And I think what happened was because the next time I was in that situation where now I got to make a decision, I had created such a work ethic and discipline that I knew nothing would put me back in that situation because I wasn't the same person. And I think a lot of times what happens with people is that fear comes up because they believe that they're the same person. And you're the same person because you didn't learn the lesson from the first time. Well, I learned the lesson from the first time. It was my ego. So when I got to this sort of fork in the road, I knew I wasn't the same person. I also knew that at the end of the day, I still got my degrees. And then the other thing I knew for sure that this was purpose. It wasn't just something I was being irresponsible for, even though like the girl I was dating at the time, like she told me I was a fool.
To quit?
Yeah, man. I mean, because I had just got an award for being the most
all the things.
Those things. And my graduate school was trying to put hundreds of thousands of dollars behind what I was doing. So it looked like I should not be making this. Even some of the deans at my graduate school were calling me like, why are you doing this? So everybody was looking at me saying, he's gone mad. Like he's gone crazy. Like, why would you do this?
Yes.
Like everything. We want what you have and you're throwing it away. But again, I think for me, it was always about, I got to be authentic to me.
Yes.
Because I got to live with me. I got to sleep with me.
Yes.
And I got to live within myself.
Yes.
And I always looked at my life like a book. Like, okay, so what's the next chapter? And so I said, how exciting would it be to go to Japan, learn all of these things, and then be able to come back and heal people?
And you know what? I feel like a lot of people hear the amount of, did you know that it was going to be 4.5 years?
No, I thought it was a year.
Wow.
I said, I'm only doing 1 year.
And then it ended up being 4.5.
Ended up being 4.5 years.
Wow. I like, there's so many parallels that we have inside of our stories. I started in network marketing. And I built to the top 1%. And at the time I was doing coaching. I had a mindset motivation t-shirt line. I was doing all these things outside of the company. And this is before, because I was in that top achievers business, that's what they call it. Because I was a top achiever, it wasn't good for that to be my side business, you know? So they made me choose, actually. And I'm grateful now that they had made me choose, because I was like, ain't nobody, you can't take me away from God's purpose. God's calling on my life. Like, this is great, but I'm out of here. But the truth is, after I left, when I tell you, I felt like I went through a divorce. I've never even been married, but this was like the only thing. And you know how it is with business. You give it your all. Like I gave it my all. I had teams. I had team all over the world. I had people that looked up to me all over the world. And I felt like a failure. Like I was allowing those people letting them down almost.
Yeah.
And I was like, is this what a divorce feels like? Because I gave you everything that I have. And now you just get to walk off,
Yeah.
you know, and do the thing and grow and the whatever. And I think I really struggled with like identity also.
Gotcha.
Did you ever experience that inside of being, you know, Dr. Bobby inside of hospitals versus now you're coining your own thing and you're committed to it, but also did that fear ever creep in for you?
Well, thank God for me. I had, well, unfortunate and fortunate. I went through a lot when I was a kid.
Mm.
You know, I watched another friend murder another friend when I was 13, 14 years old. I lost my best friend and cousin. He was getting chased by the police and he was killed in a car crash. So I went through a lot, like really, really early.
Mm.
And when you go through things like that, you either find out who you are or you lose who you are.
Mm.
And I think
That's good.
And then also, I mean, I had a son when I was 15 years old. And so by the time I was 15, I had a lifetime of experience. And as a result of that, I knew who I was.
Mm.
I couldn't fake it. When you go through that amount, you either go crazy or it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't fake who I was because I remember going to college. I had never been on a college campus before I went to college. And I remember the first week there and, you know, being on campus, I was like, man, these kids are nothing like me. And I remember like having a moment with myself saying, well, you got to do it your way then. And I think that is what has always kept me sort of balanced, because it was like, look, there's no way that they're not going to know who you are. It exudes through me. So like, I remember being on the basketball team and one of the people asking me something about something. And I was like, to myself, I was just like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I think it was like that their father and their mother had been to the school. So they had like a legacy at the school.
Oh.
And they were asking me something related to like, well, where'd your parents go to college and like that? I was like,
what's it called? Something modern. Albert, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So like for me, I just knew who I was. And I'm like, I can't fake it because everything about me shows who I am.
Yeah.
And so I've always had that sort of, I know who I am and it is what it is. And so I've never had that sort of problem with myself. The problem that I've always had with myself was, you know, healing from the past trauma.
How did you do that?
Man, that
was a question.
Yeah. It was a journey. Part of that was going to Okinawa. And the reason why it was so important for me was because, you know, when you grew up in a neighborhood like the ones that I grew up in, it's hard to wash that off of you. It's a lot of social programming that goes into like the fear. Like a lot of times when people see violence, they think that that person has no fear. No, that is probably the scariest person. That person probably has the most fear.
Dang.
And so, you know, my perspective on things was always very different. And so I had the opportunity when I went to Okinawa to not be in any environment that looked anything like I grew up in. So it was the first fresh take I had on life. Because even when I moved to Japan, my first thoughts was, everybody's going to say like, oh, look, there's a big black guy.
Yeah.
But I never got that.
Wow.
Not once. I remember one time, I started doing karate in Okinawa, and one of the students wanted to take me home to see his family and that kind of thing, and I'm going home with him, and his mom is like, oh, sugoi. Yeah. Just talking, and I'm like, I don't know what they're saying. I was like, what are they saying? He's a big black guy? And she was like, no. She said, you look really smart.
Oh.
And then I was like, oh. And she was like, you know, and she told him out, he's a doctor. He works at the hospital. She was like, I knew it. And so like the conversation that I was having in my mind versus the one that was actually playing out in reality was totally different.
Wow.
So it allowed me to say, let me shed the idea of having to always be black. and having to always be, because, you know, like, I'm not a huge dude, but I'm 6'2", 220 pounds. And I've been 6'2" since I was in the 7th grade.
Sheesh.
Yeah, I grew to this height in the 7th grade.
That's why you had a kid at 15.
And in 7th grade, I had an incident with a teacher where I was outside and, you know, talking with the fellas, and I grew up in that neighborhood. So she came when she was trying to just simply bring me back to the classroom. And when she grabbed my arm, now you got to, like, the school I went to, there was a fight usually before school, and there was definitely a fight after school, sometimes even during. So that was the kind of school I went to. And when she grabbed me from my arm, it was just basic instinct, like, Huda.
Yeah.
Like that. And I scared her to death.
Oh.
They suspended me from school for a whole year.
A year?
A year. And I remember for me to get back in school, I had to sit down with her and her husband. The principal called me in the office and she was telling me, hey, I've been going through therapy about what happened. Now, mind you, all I did was jerk my arm.
Right.
But you got to remember, I'm a pretty big kid.
Did your mom fight to get you back in school? Like a year is a very long suspension.
My mom didn't know to do that.
Got it.
And I'm sitting there and her husband says to me, you know, my wife's been going through it. And if you wasn't a kid, like, I would whoop your ass. I remember him saying that. And that, what he said didn't affect me at all. Because in my mind, I'm like,
try.
Nah, like, this ain't what you want. But I left there thinking like, this is the impression that the world has of me. I'm violent, blah, blah, blah. So I always had that impression of me. Japan was the first time where I just felt like a human being. I didn't feel like if I got pulled over by the cops one time. I had no fear in Japan. I got out of the car, I was like, what's going on, guys? And they were like, oh, your taillight is out. And then the guy was like, I can help you fix it. The cop. So in Japan, it was a totally different experience. And having that comfort and not having like that blanket that you have here in the US, it allowed me the space to heal. So
do you feel like, because one of the things, I'm Canadian, right? And moving to America, there's definitely isms of America.
Yeah.
There are idiosyncrasies, there are colloquialisms, there are just isms of America.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I feel as though I've identified, and I might get crucified for saying this, but I'm going to say it, is that a lot of Black men in America have a chip on their shoulder.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not rightfully so, because we all know systemic things that are happening, experiences that are happening. But do you feel like that's what that was, the chip on your shoulder, and going to Japan allowed you to remove it?
Yeah, and the chip came from, again, fear. You got to remember, I watched my friend kill another friend with a bat. I lost my cousin, you know, another friend committed a double homicide. So you got to understand, when you see all that around you, at some point you're going to think it possibly can happen to me.
Okay, so you saw this crazy world, you had all this trauma. How has that translated? Like, you went into a healing experience. How has this translated for you being a successful, handsome Black man in America?
Yeah.
How has this translated into your dating experience?
A dating experience, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think I always tell people the unhealed version of you makes very different decisions from the healed version.
For sure.
So my choices are very different now, you know, from a healed perspective.
Yes.
So that's very different. And then my choices now, again, same word, they're based on alignment.
Yeah.
Like, is the alignment there?
Yeah.
And so it's not just about, am I attracted to them? Do we have connection? You know, it's also about compatibility, and are we complementary?
Break that down.
Because you could be compatible. Compatible looks like this. I'm Christian, you're Christian.
Okay.
Okay. You're Black, I'm Black. Okay.
Okay.
You're a lawyer, I'm a doctor. So we're both professionals. That's compatibility. Or I like to travel, you like to travel.
Yeah.
That's compatible.
Yeah.
Okay. Complementary is maybe I have never traveled before, and you have, so we get to experience this together. So that's complementary.
Okay.
You know, it's I love to be romantic. You've never really experienced a romantic partner. Guess what? You get the benefit from that. And so I own a farm, and one day probably that's going to be where I reside full time and not doing any of this. Is that something that you would be okay with? Not every woman wants that type of lifestyle. And
well, would you have workers, or do you work your farm? Does she have to work?
Combination of both. No, I would my girl wouldn't have to do that, but I would like her to enjoy being on the farm. You see what I'm saying? So if she didn't, then there wouldn't be alignment there, because that's where my vision is. My vision is buy this 100-acre plot of land with water running through it, yoga, detoxification, growing things, et cetera, create a healing space, not only for myself, but for other people too. Not everybody wants that. And so I can get with somebody and they can love me for who I am right now, but I already know where I'm going. So I wouldn't want to take somebody on that journey with me who wouldn't want to go there. So my dating is making sure that I find somebody who I'm aligned with that with. Because the last thing I want to do is allow them to fall in love with me when I know where I'm going, or vice versa. And then we get to a point where it's like, I don't want this lifestyle for myself. So that's a lifestyle that a lot of people aren't with. I mean, I eat plants, no meat, no dairy, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I have kids one day. I want them to grow up like that, because I want to create generational health too, not just wealth.
Well, health is wealth.
You know what I'm saying? So that
truest wealth.
So, and the way you do that is through your lifestyle, through how you eat, how you live, etc. So I got to make sure somebody wants to have that type of lifestyle, not just for, the kids, but for themselves too.
So have you been married before?
No, I haven't.
Do you want to be married?
I want to spend the rest of my life with somebody.
But that means without a piece of paper from the government?
It just depends, because I don't plan to be here in the U.S.
So that means you don't have to get married?
I don't have to get married. We could get married. I'm open to both. And the reason, let me tell you why I'm saying that.
Okay.
Because you could be married legally, or you could be married spiritually.
Or you could
I'd rather be, I want to make sure we're married spiritually first.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
And so for me, that supersedes the legal paperwork.
As it
and
should.
Any woman I'm with, I mean, the way I put it is like this. Because the piece of paper ensures that if something happens, this happens, right? Well, if I'm with somebody, and let's say I have 10 properties, well, you think I would have all 10 properties and she not have any in her name? You think if I'm growing in what I'm doing, she's not going to be a part of that?
I think I've just seen on the internet that people get really ugly inside of divorces. And even if something is in her name, there could be an argument, well, I put up the money. And so there's protection, but there's also not protection. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that. But again, that's where it's like, I'll give you, for instance, I was having a conversation with someone, and I was saying, if I'm with somebody, I want the kind of person who's going to spend the time with the kids. So I don't want somebody who's working, because then the kids can't be the priority. I can't be the priority. And we can't be a priority to each other as a family. And her comment was, well, I have goals. I said, look, I understand that. I'm not knocking that. I'm just telling you what I want for a future family.
Yes.
And so
you want more children.
Yeah.
What if you and your son had a child at the same time?
Dope. Dope. But you see, but the point I was trying to
make.
make.
Does your son have children?
Yeah.
Your son has children?
Yeah.
You're a grandpa?
I'm a fucking grandpa.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I said, I had a son when I was 15.
I know.
Yeah. So yeah.
So your son, that's so funny that if or when you have more children, that their uncle or their cousin, their uncle would be younger than them. Like your kids would be their uncle or auntie and they're younger.
Yeah.
Well, if you have more children, it's a guarantee.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, man. But I think that's why I say
You're a grandpa.
Yeah, that's why I say my story is unique. It's unique. And that's why, I want to get back to what you were saying earlier. That's why I'm so particular about what I want.
Yes.
Because again, I had a son when I was 15. I didn't get to experience what it's like to have a family. So I'm very particular about that. And my thing is this, you know, as I was saying about the young lady, she was saying, well, I don't want to leave my goals behind. I was like, I'm not saying that. She's like, but I want to be with you. And I said this to her. What is your biggest concern? She said, my biggest concern is that if we don't work. And my thing to her is that, you know, it's important for you to know and understand you have to depend on me as your man. Don't be with me if you can't. You shouldn't be with a man you can't depend on. And trust.
Trust you, yes.
And trust, the most important thing. If you can be with somebody and trust them and depend on them, it means that what do I need to worry about this? And then that is where that is where sort of the pavement meets the road, because then it's really not about your goals. And that's what she discovered in the conversation. It's like, I don't have the trust.
Yes.
Because I haven't had the experience. And I told her, it's both of us jumping off of a bridge together, holding hands.
Hopefully it works out.
And I got to trust you and you got to trust me.
Yes.
And it doesn't work if we don't trust and depend on each other.
I agree with that. And, you know, it's funny because I feel like I had 2 relationships back to back. And in one of the relationships I was in, that is the most trusting, feminine, my little girl, safe, secure I had ever felt. When I tell you that man had me doing all the things. So I was baking fresh bread every week, like literally doing and I said this on another podcast, like I didn't know that Black people ate casseroles. He loved a casserole. I learned. I didn't grow up eating my mom never cooked a casserole. Maybe I'm sure she can, but she just never did. So I was doing all of the things that he loved, and I desire and I'm grateful I walked away from that relationship, but I got such clear glimpses of who I want to be inside of my relationship. And when I jumped into the relationship after the following relationship, I jumped into it with the same level of like reckless surrender, like reckless trust. But that person was not ready for my level of reckless trust.
And it requires discernment.
Oh my gosh, yes. So I can understand why women are like, you know, it is scary because really and truly men, and I don't think this is talked about enough either, but a lot of the times men get the best years of our life. And then it's just like, oh, well, maybe you have children, maybe you don't. I don't think any woman goes into a relationship planning to be a single mom, you know, and a lot of the times it's kind of like responsibilities are left on her. And I don't necessarily think that's fair just because, we grew apart. Like, okay, well, are we being intentional about not growing apart? So there are definitely parameters that I think it's wise for each individual in the relationship to protect themselves also. But it's hard. It's a challenge, especially depending on the type of person that you're after. Yeah. And I have to ask you, I looked this up on the internet because I was listening, and you know, this whole episode is about like spirituality and self-love and integrity and all these things. 'Cause I know these are things that you embody. Right. But I had to go over to Google, right? Okay. Because that's such a reliable source. Okay. I had to go over to Google and look up, what does it mean when you are in love with someone? And Google says, if your so-called butterflies have transformed into feelings of tenderness, trust, and genuine concern for your partner's well-being, you just might be in love. Yeah. Do you believe that that's true?
I believe that that's true. Mm-hmm. I also believe that...
How do you know if you're in love?
How do I know, personally? There's a part of me that initially feels fear. Oh. And then what happens is, once I'm aware of that, is then like, oh, I'm in love.
Oh, and you don't sabotage it.
No.
That is such a beautiful.
I love love. No, I love love.
Don't we all?
And so,
who doesn't love love?
Yeah. So when I get that initial fear, again, I think that fear again comes from my childhood, losing people. And so when I'm in a relationship and it's going really well, and then there's no reason that fear comes up, that's probably what it is. And so that's the initial point that sometimes I get. And that's part of me knowing that there's still healing to do. And then after that, it's it's a spiritual connection. What I noticed about me is I'm the best version of me when I'm in love. And so having that opportunity to love somebody and then feeling like I'm becoming a better version of me, it's also like a green flag.
I say this all the time on this podcast, that there is something because you are a masculine alpha man. Like, I know this about you. And I have a lot of alpha masculine men on this show.
Yeah.
And you consistently hear kind of the same messaging. And what I'm hearing from everyone and what I've experienced to be true is when an alpha masculine man, not to say that men don't also have feminine traits, because masculine and feminine are energies. I have to say this disclaimer every time, or people just go in and it's like, rah. Anyway, they're not genders, but masculinity and femininity. But when you get a woman that is in her divine feminine, her very energy and essence will inspire you to want to be more, do more, and have more.
Absolutely.
Just by her being in your space.
Absolutely.
That's not including, any tangible thing that she brings to the table. And I always say, because a lot of the times men are like, oh, what do you bring to the table? Well, if you aren't inspired by me just being here, first of all, after a period of time, I'm not bringing enough.
Right.
Period. Like that's the standpoint that I kind of have. I understand it being like, well, let's see if we're compatible, and let's see, what is the word that you use?
Complementary.
Complementary. I think those things are important, but the whole what do you bring to the table aspect of things, it's like, if you don't know, I'm not your girl.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I actually hate that question. What do you bring to the table? Because I think what happens is through the most important thing is actually getting to know somebody.
Yes.
I don't think people spend any time actually getting to know somebody.
They just dive into a relationship.
And I think just microwave it.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important that people start spending time with people. People have this notion that they're going to waste their time. You waste your time when you don't get to know somebody. And what happens is you end up in a relationship with somebody you don't know. And then one day you wake up and say, I don't know who the hell you are.
I don't even like this person for real.
Exactly.
You know what? I will say, and a lot of times it comes from trauma.
Yeah.
And I've done this in my past. And it used to be like whoever was the most persistent would win.
Yeah.
I've only really chosen powerfully like 2 relationships. Everybody else was like, I just kind of fell into it. And I've only ever been in relationships. I'm not saying I'm proud of myself, but it is the truth. If I literally sit here and think about every relationship that I've been in, it has been the man that has been the most persistent, has worked the hardest, has like been like, I'm going to win you. I'm like, okay, you won me.
Right.
That's not great.
No, it's not, because what happens with a lot of those men, once they win it,
it's over.
They don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, they don't, because it was all a show to get you in the first place.
Sometimes some men only know how to pursue and
not sustain.
Sustaining is the work, man.
Yeah.
Like when you're emotional and I got to be a shoulder to cry on.
Yes.
And having to deal with those emotions in a compassionate way.
Yes.
Where you feel heard and seen.
Are emotions hard for you to tap into based off of your experiences growing up?
They have been. I would say in this chapter in my life, I've evolved in the last 3 years. And in terms of first, see, I can't handle your emotions if I don't even have any to deal with myself.
Yeah.
And so for a long time, I was very Virgo.
You're a Virgo?
Yeah. I was very Virgo. So if you asked me a question, it was just yes, no. And what happened to me was I realized that that's not tapping into every part of myself.
No.
And I wanted to experience every part of myself, even if I didn't like it.
I feel like so many things make sense in this moment.
Yeah. So for me, it was like, let's develop that part, because I have a goddaughter, right? And when my goddaughter comes to me see, I had a son all my life. That's very different from raising a daughter.
Very different.
And now I have a goddaughter, and, for a period, she lived with me.
Yeah.
And having to give her advice, and when she's crying because a puppy died and stuff like that. If that was my son, it would be a totally different conversation. But having the experience with her, like, it really opened me up to saying, okay, I got to learn how to do this.
Yeah.
So it opened me up to saying, okay, I'm going to experience this within myself so that I can be better when we have our moments. Yeah.
That's good. Okay, we have to switch gears a little bit here. There's a really fun part in the show.
Okay.
We're coming to an end. This is so, like, I feel like time just flies when you're having fun, you know?
I got you.
Okay. This portion of the show is based on you telling me on a scenario whether you would say it's giving something positive or it's giving something negative.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to give you these scenarios
All right.
and you have to tell me the answer.
Okay. What we
You're
got?
in a relationship
All right.
and you love the woman that you're with and she is absolutely obsessed with musicals. Obsessed. Loves a great musical. And you say, you know what, I'm going to surprise my girl. I'm going to bring her to Broadway. We're going to go see this musical. And she cannot help but sing every song at the top of her lungs in the theater. It's giving homegirl. Please be quiet and sit down and enjoy the show. Or it's giving, you know what? I don't think I could do this. This is just a little bit too extra for me.
It's giving, do your damn thing.
Really?
Nah, man, I really like for people to be who they are. And if that's, I hate musicals.
What?
I do not like musicals.
Who hates musicals?
Man, if I see a movie and it looks good.
The Wiz.
And, well, that's the only one. That's the only exception.
The only one?
That's the only exception.
What about the Black Cinderella?
I'm good.
Have you seen it?
I'm good.
But you've never seen it.
You know what happens?
What?
I see the damn movie and I say, okay, I'm going to watch this. Within 3 minutes, everybody's singing. I'm like, I'm done.
The Black Cinderella.
I'm done. The only one I could get through is The Wiz.
Brandy. The Wiz is great. The Wiz is literally one of the best movies of all time.
I ain't knocking it.
I know every song in that movie.
Yeah.
Every single song. The Black Cinderella, I really challenge you to watch this movie.
No, I watched.
You've seen it?
3 or 4 minutes of it. I'm just being honest with you. As soon as I see a movie and they start singing, I'm like appalled.
Frozen.
Appalled. I'm good.
Annie.
I'm trying to tell you, the only one.
Annie?
The only one is The Wiz.
Have you seen it though?
I did.
You saw Annie?
3 or 4 minutes.
No, they don't even sing a song in the first 3 or 4 minutes of Annie.
Is this the same movie with Jamie Foxx?
No, that's the new Annie. I'm talking about the original Annie.
Oh, I would definitely wouldn't like that one then. I definitely wouldn't like that one then.
Why?
I'm just being honest. Probably the only reason I loved The Wiz was because
Diana Ross and Michael Jackson.
There you go. You got one of the most regal women in the entire existence of human and mankind, and then you got Michael Jackson, the greatest entertainer of all time. I had to like it.
Nuh-uh. How can you not like a musical? The Little Mermaid.
If you like it, I love it. I'm just being honest.
I feel like my feelings are hurt for you right now.
Don't. Because again, like if I love you enough to take you to a musical,
that's a lot.
I'm gonna let you do your damn thing.
What about an opera? Because you don't care anyway. You like, I'm just.
I actually like opera.
What?
Yeah, I actually like opera.
Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah.
What about, what's the movie with Nicole Kidman, musical? So good. Not Burlesque, although that was also a great movie.
Moulin Rouge?
Yes.
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. I'm trying to tell you, I'll see the movie. I'm like, Moulin Rouge, that sounds like an old good. Let me check it out. 3 to 4 minutes in? Nah, I'm good.
I don't even know what to say to this.
I mean, you like it, I love it.
I've never been stumped on my podcast
I'm
before.
never going to knock anybody for what they love. I love to see people do what they love.
I love musicals.
That's one of the most inspiring things for me to see.
I love musicals.
Good. So
I literally love them. I go to New York to watch musicals.
Good.
On Broadway.
They got a lot there.
There's so many.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I'm always like, when I'm in the... Yeah, same thing. 3 to 4 minutes.
You didn't like Grease?
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Next question. We got to move on. Okay. You're dating a woman and it is a whirlwind of passion and romanticism. And it just makes you happy. You think about her. You're inspired. You feel a little bit of fear inside of your heart. You've been talking to her for about 6 months. and then you find out she has an 11-month-old.
And she never told?
She never told you. It's giving. Homegirl, you got to go. You could have told me and you deceived me this entire time. I'm through. Or it's giving, well, at least this baby will think I'm the daddy.
You got to go. I'm gonna tell you why.
Please do.
You got to remember, I was a father at 15.
Okay.
Going off to college. My son spent nights in the dorms with me.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been open about having a son.
Uh-huh.
And when a woman isn't open about that, it's never a good sign.
Really?
Never a good sign.
Have you ever experienced a woman not being open about having children?
Once.
Oh, what was the result? Not obviously you guys aren't together, I'm guessing.
Okay.
But yeah. I mean, like, what was the tell-all sign? Like, what was the thing?
I just well, how did I find out?
Yeah.
Well, I walked into her car, and when I opened the door, I saw some toys in the back, and a baby seat.
Oh, well, that'll give it away.
Yeah, and that was
She
like,
could have said it wasn't her baby.
Yeah, but she told the truth in that moment. But I remember asking her about kids and stuff like that. She never brought it up.
Ah.
Yeah, so that was I'm cool.
Dang. Just be honest. Just be honest, y'all. Like, it's all good.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, we had another person on the show and he said, when you have a child, for men and women, by the way, your sexual market value goes down. Mm-hmm. Do you believe that single parents lose their value in the marketplace?
I definitely believed it when I was 15.
Okay.
I'm being honest with you. Like, every time I had to tell a girl, like, yo, I'm 17 and I have a 2-year-old. I'm in the dorms and I'm walking out with a little kid and is that your brother? No, this is my son.
Right.
So, like, I've gone through that.
Yeah.
But what I can say, I never experienced anybody I truly wanted to be with who that was a problem for. Mm. So, from my personal position, are you asking men looking on?
Yeah,
like a single mother? Mm-hmm. I think it depends on the case and scenario. Because I find that there are always exceptions to everything.
Absolutely.
Always exceptions. Mm-hmm. Does it make it more difficult? I do believe it does, depending on the type of man that you want to marry. Mm. Because again, like, if I'm going to date somebody who is a single mother, I have to look at, like, this is going to be my child.
Package deal.
Like, it doesn't come so separately.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
definitely.
I got to take on not only the financial responsibility, but I have to take on the fatherly responsibility too. Yeah. Do I want to do that in a relationship?
Do you?
Like I said, there's always exceptions to the rule.
Okay, that was safe.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll let that slide.
Okay, cool.
We'll give that a pass. Final It's Giving question.
Okay.
You are dating a woman, and same like before, whirlwind, romantic, absolutely incredible. The energy is popping, compatibility and comparability. What was the word? Not comparability. What was the word that you used?
Compatibility and complementary.
Complementary. I don't know why I can't remember complimentary. I swear. I'm decently intelligent. Anyway, so complimentary, and it's just, you're just setting it off. And one day you go to a restaurant and the server comes to the table and she is so rude to the server for no reason. It's giving, I thought I liked you, but now I realize I don't. I'm done and this is our last supper. Or it's giving, ooh, baby's got an attitude and I kind of like it.
I'm done.
Oh.
Yeah, because my mom was a house cleaner. Mm. And I remember my mom used to clean up hotel rooms as a maid, and we used to have to go with her. And so when I see somebody who treats somebody who was of a quote unquote lower status poorly, I just, it rubs everything in me wrong. Mm. Yeah. So I believe that if you can see the good in everybody, you're the kind of person that I want to be around. It doesn't matter if it's a romantic relationship, platonic relationship. Even this, if I saw a dude do that, I'm not cool with that. So yeah, I'm good.
I agree with you. I had a terrible experience. You want to hear a terrible experience
Sure.
I had? I felt like I literally, if I could melt into nothing and just disappear, that's how small I felt inside of this moment. I was dating a man. I actually was engaged to this man. And I never really liked him, but my parents did. And so, like I said, whoever's most persistent has always won. Most recently, I've started making better decisions for myself.
Okay, good. Okay? That's what we want to hear.
Yeah, this is a long time ago as well, I
Okay.
should say. Anyway, I was engaged to this man and we went into a Best Buy. And you know how Best Buy has like, I don't know if they still have them. I don't even really go into stores much, to be honest. But Best Buy had like those rooms where it'd be like the big expensive TVs.
Oh, yeah.
And like the big expensive speakers. Like it was like the room and a TV was like $10,000, $7,000, $15,000, right?
Yeah.
Me and this man went into just to look, right? Now me, even making money, I'm not spending $10,000 on a TV because I don't watch enough TV to spend I don't care.
Same here.
There are things that I valued at $10,000. It's never going to be a TV. You know, $10,000, I could take my whole family somewhere and do something awesome. $10,000, I could buy, add to my life insurance. I could get more stocks. Like, there's so many different things I could do with $10,000. That is not a TV for me, right? So the woman comes up to us that works at Best Buy and she said, can I help you guys find anything? Like a normal person that works at a store. And we say, oh no, we're just looking around. And she said, oh, I know, like who's going to buy a $7,000 TV? I thought that was so sweet. I was like, you know what? Girl, I'm with you. I would never spend $7,000 on a TV. No, I didn't say that. I just giggled. I was like, yeah. In that moment, my partner, Dr. Bobby Price, Dr. Holistic, my man at the time said, wow, well, some of us just have different tastes. And now I'm not, it's like, I like immediately, I'm like, oh God, what just happened? His ego was rubbed the complete wrong way. Yeah. This man said, what kind of car do you drive? She said something like a Toyota, like a Camry or something, a normal, nice car, you know? And he said, well, some people have Camry taste. And other people, and he pulls out the car key, have this kind of car taste. And in that moment, if I could have turned into dust and disappeared, I would have felt better in my soul. I was so disgusted by the way that he treated this woman because she was just saying the obvious in my mind. Who is going to spend $7,000 on a TV? Right. And we weren't even going to buy no $7,000 TV. For me, baby, let's talk about it. Right. Let's not do this. Let's do something. There's so many other things here in Best Buy that we could get that's worth this $7,000 and it's not, well, let's go with the $1,500, $3,500 TV. I don't care. You know what I mean? But in that moment, I hate condescending people. Hate is such a strong word. But I feel pretty confident in saying I passionately dislike condescending, arrogant people. Yeah.
I just don't like people who treat people poorly. Like, there's enough going on in the world, and everybody has something going on in their life. And it doesn't matter what you feel, you have to be in a position where you can always empathize with people and also just be a decent human being.
Be a decent human being. Be a decent human being.
Yeah, but I think, again, it's American culture, unfortunately. It's sort of, you look at movies and you see this kind of behavior and you think that it's cool. You think that it's something that you could do because you maybe have that status of that person.
What does that status even mean?
That's why I use air quotes. And so, I think that is all that is wrong with the world. Oh. And I think that's why, a lot of people are getting what they're getting out of life as well, too.
I puff up. I will say, it's like the devil knows your weaknesses. The opponent, the enemy, whatever you want to call it, they know your weaknesses. I puff up. Like I go into straight protection mode. Don't ever condescend to anyone I'm around. I don't care who the person is. Right. You will have it. This is Sparta.
Okay.
Oh, we're fighting?
Putting the boot out?
We are like legit. This is absolutely Sparta. Tuh.
Gotcha.
I cannot stand that. That is, I passionately dislike condescending, arrogant people.
Yeah.
Those are the most insecure people I also find.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been my observation.
Yeah.
Last question of It's Giving. It wasn't that bad, right?
No, no,
You
no,
were
no.
a little nervous before, like, oh God, what's she going to say? You did great.
Listen, I knew it was going to be a good conversation because we've always had great
This
conversations.
is very true.
Yeah. So
This is very, very
I
true.
didn't expect
I also
anything
need to order
different.
an iHeart Fruit Box.
Indeed.
.com. That was a shameless plug. You know, we don't talk about business on here, but we just did in that moment. Yes. But my final question is, I am an avid reader and I believe in evolution, and our listeners believe in growth and getting better and growing. And one day we're going to have a sponsorship with Audible. Hi, Audible. We love you so much. $14.95 a month, and you get 3 audiobooks with that $14.95.
Yeah.
Look, I'm already your sales girl. Just hire me already, okay? Anyway, so I say that to say, if you love reading or listening to a book, what book has changed your life and why?
A lot. Can I name 2?
Sure.
Okay, cool. The Alchemist.
Oh, Pablo Coelho, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Great book.
Changed my life because I was going through what Santiago was going through in my life at the time.
Yes.
There's a beautiful part of the story where he's in the middle of the desert. He meets a girl that he falls in love with, but he got to make a choice.
Yep.
And, you know, the choice was continue on your purpose that you were seeking and you met me along the journey, or stay behind with me. And, you know, in that moment, he was making the choice of her, and she said, no, you can't. You have to find your purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And that told me the kind of woman that I wanted.
Mm.
You know, so I love that book.
That's a bar.
Yeah.
What was it called? Oh no, I'm thinking Napoleon Hill, your definiteness of purpose. But
oh, yeah,
similar.
different. Yeah.
What is the term in that book? It's something like that, though.
Well, he's always saying, follow your omens.
Follow your omens, but there's something in the purpose. Anyway.
Okay.
I'll figure it out, guys. I'll put it
cool.
in the information below.
So that book, and then Seed of the Soul by Gary Zukov.
Wow. I did not think you were going to say that book.
Yeah. So that changed. You were asking earlier about, you know, changing my point of view around spirituality and then purpose on here on earth.
Yes.
That was one of the books that shifted me.
How?
Because in the book, Seed of the Soul, they dive into what it means to be a spiritual being having a human experience.
Yes.
And it sort of put things into play for me. And it also helped me look back on my life retroactively. Mm-hmm. And see that I had missed so many lessons. And that's why I was getting where I was getting in life. And it also helped me sort of discern how I should be instrumental in other people's lives as well, too. And so it really changed a lot in my life. So I would say those 2 books.
You know, it's crazy. I feel like certain books come into your life at certain times.
Definitely.
Dependent on what you need, right? When the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Yep.
And I think I found that book probably like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, it was like 10 years for me too.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. I forgot about that book, to be honest. Until you just said it, I was like, oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Great
Super
book.
dope book.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for blessing our show today. Coming on here, dropping bars. Guys, we heard about how to take care of yourself, how to be a good human being, what it would be like to have a farm, dating in alignment, making sure that you have complementary, compatibility, and chemistry. Those things are all important, but are your lives really in alignment with what you want most, more than what you want right now? Are you willing to be patient with your process? And so many other bars were dropped. So thank you again, Dr. Bobby, for coming and blessing us today. And guys, if no one has told you today, you are freaking phenomenal. Bomb.com. Nothing can stop you but you got to do something about it. I love you guys. Bye. Bye.